Hey everyone, today I'm going to be showing you another Inkscape tutorial, and this time we're going to be doing an album cover. Now I'm going to use a simple photograph and add some text and effects and show you how to make that into something that looks pretty cool. Alright, so let's jump right in. Now as you can see, I have the default Inkscape canvas open, and my setup has a default set of 3 layers. You can add your 3 layers if you need them, or any number really, but I typically start with 3, and for this tutorial that's a good number to work with. Also, we're going to be changing our canvas size, so open properties, and instead of a width of say like 1024 by 768, you want a square. So in this case, a good size is about 1024 by 1024 pixels. If you're doing this for print media, obviously you may use millimeters, inches, centimeters, whatever measurement works for you, but for me I'm going to be using pixels because we're doing this for the screen. Alright, and 1024 by 1024 is pretty reasonable, but if you want it bigger than that, you can always go with the bigger size. Just make sure that your aspect ratio is 1:1. Alright, so we can close document properties, and now I'm going to add the photo that we're going to use. This is a picture of my brother, and I'm going to drag it across the Inkscape. Alright, I probably need to move this window just so I can drag it in. And click OK. Alright, now as you can see, the image is way too big for our canvas, so I'll need to zoom out and make sure that the axes are locked, and then hold shift and resize from the corner. Right, and I'm going to just put it in position exactly where I want it to be. I may need to resize it again to get it exactly as I want it. Well, by the way, a small tip: make sure when you are working with your canvas that you have show page border and border on top of drawing enabled, so that you can actually see where the end of your canvas is, where the dimensions are. Alright. So I'm just going to resize this a little bit more to get it exactly where I want it. Now if you want, you can move, let's say you have an image that, like this one, it ends right here and you want to leave some space at the bottom, you can move it outside of the canvas just a little bit as well, or within the canvas, depending on what you're trying to achieve. So in this case, I'm just going to move it up a little bit and leave this space here open. And I'm going to add a square, make this the size of the canvas, 1024 by 1024, and I'm going to position it in the center of the page using align and distribute. Then select the image, and I held shift, by the way, when I was clicking on that image, so that both things are selected. Then right click, set clip, and now our image is clipped to the canvas. And then I'm going to add a rectangle which will sit at the bottom of the page, and make sure that it's covering or touching the edge of the image. I'm going to duplicate this one and move it up a little bit. What I'm going to do now is add a gradient. This isn't necessary, this is just what I'm choosing to do in this particular instance, but you can add whatever elements you want to your own album cover, doesn't really matter. This is just the style I'm choosing to go with this time. Alright, so double click on this and adjust the gradient so that it is fading from the image to the square at the bottom. Alright, doesn't need to be exact, but I tend to be a little pedantic about those things. Alright, so I'm going to move this up a bit. If it's being tricky, you can use the keyboard, of course. Or you can hold shift and move it freely if you need to. Now I'm going to select this and blur it just a bit. Also resize it, because sometimes the edges go inside of the canvas when you blur, so you have to resize it a bit. Let me just turn off snapping for the time being so I can resize this freely. Gonna move it down. Right, that's about good there. Just turn back on snapping as well, of course. Now, all of this I'm going to move to the bottom layer because we want everything here to be the base of our album cover. In fact, let me move these to the layer above. I'm going to explain why I did that shortly. If let's say you are working with an image like this and you're not satisfied with exactly the color or the tone or whatever, you can actually edit the image within Inkscape. You don't need an image editor for this, what I'm about to do. This is a very simple strategy that I like to use. So go to your layers and objects tab, lock this layer because we're not going to be editing anything, and lock this layer as well. Duplicate the layer where the image is. Just make sure it is down here above the bottom layer. And then select this layer twice so you can get to fill and stroke. And now you can adjust the blend mode of the layer. Can get some really cool effects like this, by the way. So I'm going to use overlay and turn down the opacity. Gives us a nice tone to the image. We move layer 2 up actually. And in layer 3, before I go to layer 3, let me rename this one. This will be shade, or bottom shade is better actually. And I'm going to rename layer 3 to different. Now let me explain what I'm about to do here. I'm going to add a square, and this square will be of some kind of color, let's say red, green, whatever color I choose. And I'm then going to actually make that square overlay the image with the blend mode of difference. Or I can use exclusion. I would rename the layer in that case. Alright, so let's add a color to it. I mean, it looks good as is, but we're going to adjust it a bit. So from the layers and objects, make sure your layer is selected. And then we're going to choose difference, as I said, as our blend mode. And we can adjust the opacity, of course. In this case, I think difference may not give us exactly the effect that I'm looking for, so I'm going to play around with the blend modes just a little bit until I get what I want. Alright, I think this one's good here. Now what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to turn up the opacity. We turn it all the way up. And select this again so that we have the fill and stroke. I'm going to add a gradient and flip that gradient around so now that it has a nice effect on it that goes from one side of the image to the other. So you can get kind of like a vintage look or whatever it is you choose to go with. You can even add 2 colors to your gradient or more and get even cooler looks. Alright, now I'm going to stop playing with the color on this for a little bit so we can add some text and stuff. So let's say we wanted to add text that says who produced the album. We're going to put that at the bottom with producer text as our layer. So create new layer, call it producer text, and add a text object. And we're going to put produced by, and let's put Rolandix or Studios here. That's not a real thing, but we'll just pretend it's real for today. We're going to choose a font of, say, like Lato or something. Could be another one, or like, how about go small caps? Yeah, let's go with this one. And then we're going to choose the letter spacing. Well, 15 is good. Make the text a lot smaller. Could probably reduce the letter spacing with smaller text as well. Alright, now my mouse is being a little silly. Alright, there we go. Now, Inkscape gives us some really cool snapping features as of recently. But sometimes it is a little hard to snap to center, so seeing as I already have it in the center of this shape here, vertically, I'm going to center horizontally using the Align and Distribute panel. Alright, so that's our producer text in place. Let's get a look at the page. Full page, looks pretty nice. And we can also use icon preview to see what it will look like in the end. Looks pretty good. Of course, I'm going to adjust this image because it is a little bit dark, so I'm going to put some effects on that before we're done. Alright, so let's lock producer text and add another layer. This time this is going to be album text. And we're going to put some pretty big text for this one. I'm going to put stages of life. Make sure it's aligned to the right. And we're going to resize it. Alright, I think it's probably better like this with the stages of and life onto different lines. Trying to get it to look good, basically. Alright, so we're going to change the font. Let me try Impossibilium. Okay, that one, it doesn't look too bad, but I think I'm going to go with something a little cooler than that. So let's go with Capacitor. Or actually capture it. Yeah, capture it will probably do it a much better justice. So yeah, we'll go with capture it instead. Now, as you can see, the contrast here is kind of lacking, so we're gonna have to fix that, and that's pretty easy to do too. So to add contrast, underneath album text, add another layer. We're gonna call this contrast. We're going to add a square. Make sure it's 1024 by 1024. Put it right in the center. Then we're going to add a circle or oval, really. Put it in a different color so we can actually see it. Rotate. Might need to zoom out a little bit so we can actually work with this correctly. Alright, good. So we resize this now until it is touching the edges. Just rotate slightly again to get it at exactly where we want it. Good. And now we are going to select both and use difference. Then we're going to change the color on this one. So now we have some contrast up there. We could leave it like this, doesn't look bad, but I'm going to adjust it even more than that. So changing the alpha value here, not opacity this time. And then we're going to blur it. I like exact values. You can choose your own. You don't have to use 0.6 like I like to do. I used to choose 0.5, but for some reason 0.6 feels better to me. So I just go with that. I've duplicated it just now, and now I'm going to adjust the alpha value on that one that I duplicated and blur it even more. Alright, good, there we go. So now we have some appropriate contrast in this corner. And I think I'm going to move producer text up actually, just to make sure that nothing is overlapping that. And oh, I forgot to rename difference. Let's call this one color shade. Okay, I see we have two layers here called layer 1, so let's just make sure that we have them named correctly. So this one is image overlay, and let's call this one image. Right, okay, bottom shade, we'll move this up as well, above contrast, because we don't want the contrast to overlay that. Okay, so now this looks good as is, but of course we don't know who the person is yet, so I'm going to add my brother's name to this. He does not even know I'm doing this, so I will have to inform him after. I'm sure he won't mind though, my brother won't mind being famous on my videos. Now we can leave the same font there, or we can change it to something else. I think it actually looks pretty nice with the same font, so I'm going to leave it like that. Now what you can do to make sure that these are the same width is we can actually... Okay, let me make sure album text is open so I can actually select this here. We can select the text and go to object to path, and then we can split these out into separate paths, group these letters here, and then if I select and resize this text, it should actually snap now to the corner of this other text. Pretty cool, isn't it? And now we're going to add volume 1 to this somewhere. Oops, I accidentally pressed Ctrl S there just now, which I did not mean to do. I'm not sure which one flow root is here. Alright, so let's try this again, because I just... Okay, there it is. Let's delete flow root. That was added by accident. I was trying to add some extra text, but something went wrong there. So let's try that again. Volume 1. I'm gonna resize this to be roughly halfway. And what we're going to do now is actually add a rectangle. Oops, didn't want it that big. Sometimes snapping can be a little annoying, so I'm going to turn it right back off. Resize this to where I want it to. Good, that's about where I want it. Duplicate it, change the color, move it down. I'm going to use the keyboard to get at that this time. Alright, I'm going to try and select both of these. And then difference. Good, there we go. Now, tell me that doesn't look pretty cool. It does look really cool. Now we can leave that as is, or I'm going to undo like I just did, duplicate this one, move it to the back, select the two rectangles again. This can be a little tricky, so let me zoom in. Right, and difference. Okay, wait, I obviously did not actually duplicate like I thought I did, so let's try that again. Duplicate. Let me change this one to black so I can actually see that it is definitely there. Okay, good. Select these two and difference. Oh wait, I just realized why this is going there. It is actually not in a layer, so let's move it to album text where it needs to be, and let's also move all these to album text as well, just so that we don't end up with any further challenges. Alright, so we're going to select this one and change the opacity. And then we're going to resize upward. Let's make sure snapping is on, by the way, because we want to snap it to this other one here. Okay, it's actually not snapping. I thought it would. For some reason it didn't. But we can come into the node editor and object to path, select these two end nodes here, and make sure I have only them selected. Some of the errors you may see in this video, by the way, have nothing to do with Inkscape itself. It is my mouse being a little jumpy. Or sometimes me pressing the wrong key on my keyboard. Okay, let's try this one more time. Select these nodes and hold Control and pull them down. Right, and it should snap them right to the end of this one. Okay, it still didn't. Not sure why. So let's just move these down. See if it will work this time. Control. Okay, yeah, there we go. So everything snapped into place as I wanted it now. Perfect. Oh, these two can also move across. Hold Control and drag. Good, there we go. Now, to make this look a little more stagey, to coin a term, we are going to actually add some more effects. So, let's lock album text, and we are going to add another layer below bottom shade and above contrast. And we are going to call this one Stages. And what I'm going to do in Stages actually is something that is pretty cool to me. In Inkscape, you can actually do mathematics to determine the width or height of anything. So for the width, I'm going to use 1024 divided by 5, which is 204.8. And for the height, we're going to use 1024. I'm going to put this right here, duplicate it, put another one right here. I want them to actually be touching, right? Duplicate, and we're going to just keep doing this until we get across to this side over here. Now at this point, all of them are the same color, so you may be thinking, now what was the point of that? But I'm going to make it actually have a point at this point. Actually select everything and duplicate, turn off the fill, turn on the stroke, make them white. Can turn up the stroke if you want. Alright, so about 3.5. And then we're going to select the ones inside now, and we're going to give them different colors. Alright, so with this color, I'm going to copy this hex value here. Well, it's not really a hex value, but copy that value and put it in each one of these. And then coming back to the second one, we're going to start moving across on the hue. Doesn't really matter what the number is that you choose, just basically coming across from the original. Alright, and that looks good as is, but we want this to actually blend. So what we're going to do, select Stages, the layer itself, make sure that you can actually adjust its fill and stroke from here, and then we are going to use Overlay, turn down the opacity, doesn't look too bad, but we can adjust this, probably use a different blend mode if you want. So let me see, screen. I think screen is probably going to give me a better effect than overlay. Sometimes I have the idea in mind, and then when I actually try it, it doesn't come out exactly like I want, but that is all part of design. So you can try different blend modes and see which one you like the most. Color and overlay may not exactly work because the white is not going to show up exactly with those. So you can try different, as I said, try different blend modes and see which one works the best. And I think I'm going to stick with screen, actually. Yeah, looks pretty good. Can probably adjust the opacity a little more, bring it down some more because it was kind of strong here. I don't want to take away from the initial image too much. But what you can do actually to make the image stand out a little more, duplicate the overlay layer. Okay, it doesn't seem to want to actually duplicate this layer, so let me try this one more time. If it doesn't work, because I am using a development build of Inkscape, there may be bugs. If it doesn't work, I'm going to use the regular layer panel and see, yeah, that works. So we can move this one up above Stages and change its blend mode to, I don't know, let's say like hard light. Or yeah, soft light may actually be better. And you can adjust the opacity as well to see what effect you get. Alright, this isn't too bad. You can basically see how you can come up with all sorts of renditions from, you know, just what I'm showing you today. This is just one way of doing an album cover. There are so many different ways that we could do an album cover. I don't think I need to add anything else to this one because it looks pretty complete, looks pretty good. So we will call it a day right here, actually. Yeah, so hope you enjoyed that, hope you learned something. I'll probably have another Inkscape tutorial out very soon. I may do some more album covers like these just because they're fun to do and show you some of the different features of Inkscape along the way of doing that. Until then, I am Lemuel Taylor, aka Roland Dixor. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, and check out my stores, which will be in the description. Y'all have a good time. See you later.